All right, so we're going to look at chapter 8. Okay, we're going to begin making our Republican culture in this chapter. All right. All right, so first we're going to look at the bank again. Okay, so its charter is going to lapse here soon. All right, which means that we're going to have to renew it. Okay, so they're going to renew it for a short period of time. It's going to come back up again later, and we're going to encounter that with Jackson here soon. Okay, we are going to have a panic of 1819. A panic is an economic downfall, which is going to be looked at as kind of questionable banking practices happening that farmers and planters are facing problems due to the money that we are lending out and putting forth for trade during the Napoleonic War. So we are going to get some rural manufacturing. All right, we'll talk about that here in a minute. All right, and a bunch of new transportation systems, super important to know. So what we're going to get here is we're going to get what I want you to focus on is the putting out system. The idea that merchants are going to buy raw goods, then they're going to pay farm families to produce a product. Then the merchant's going to distribute that final good to people for sale. Okay. Now, once we start getting some new technology like hydropower, okay, we're going to realize that if we put factories next to water, okay, we don't have to do the putting out system anymore. Instead, we can bring people into the factory and create the exact same product, larger quantities and faster. Okay. So a bunch of farmers with this are going to then begin raising animals for their raw goods, such as the wool and hides. So not just for meat anymore, but now we're going to get the wool and the hides as a central reason to raise animals. So obviously there's going to be an environmental impact, not so good on this. We're going to be rerouting waterways, putting up dams places, changing the geography of certain areas, but it's going to benefit us economically and industrial. So we're going to get some new waterway highways. All right. We're going to get canals. We're going to get things like that getting created. All right. Part of this is going to be the public utility system, right? The idea that states are going to grant charters to private businesses, all right, to construct this transportation. All right. This is going to be something that's going to be looked at as an incentive to encourage business, all right, for the general welfare of the people. Some people are going to not be fans of this, okay? They're going to say that this is privilege, this is private enterprise, okay? So we're going to kind of begin seeing this business rights versus personal rights coming up. We are going to have some social division here. Okay, we're going to have this middle class is going to begin evolving. All right. Of course, this is for white males. All right. Then we're also going to get the new wealthy versus the inherited wealthy. Okay, this is going to be kind of the old money and the new money. This is going to be something that's going to cause conflicts all the way through really the post World War II, arguably. So this social tension is going to exist. Middle class is going to be born because we're going to need managers to kind of run these new factories that we're going to create with our hydropower. Okay. And then, of course, we're still going to have our discrimination, race and gender. And a lot of this leads to the lack of suffrage. Remember that we are going to begin expanding suffrage soon, though. So that's a good thing. Republican marriages. Okay, the idea is that the woman, all right, is subordinate to the man. It's the idea that Republican marriages are more based on romantic marriages, like actual, hey, I think I kind of like you, versus, hey, my family needs more land, so we're going to get married. Okay. What this means, though, if we're getting married because we love people, is that we're also going to increase our divorce rate. So a lot of times this divorce rate is going to be based off of abandonment. So the husband or the wife just packs a bag and leaves, and the other person doesn't see them for long periods. So therefore, they can get a divorce for abandonment or emotional grounds. Usually this is about abuse or things like that. This one's a little easier to prove. This one's going to be a little harder. Remember that we are going to have Republican motherhood, right? So post-revolution, somebody's got to raise these children, all right? The children are the future of our republic. They all need to be ready to take over and continue our country. So therefore, mothers need to be educated in order to pass on the knowledge of republic and democracy to the young men that are going to be taking over our country. So Republican motherhood is a huge win for women during this time period. All right, so we're also going to have parenting divisions. So there's going to be like the middle class enlightenment, which is they're going to talk to their kids, they are going to rationalize with their kids, and then you're going to have the poorer families that kind of focus on the second great awakening. This is going to feed the poor families. This is going to lead to a more authoritarian child rearing. So we kind of have these family divisions as to how to raise children already starting here before we even reach the 1950s. We have this split beginning. So debates over education is going to happen, all right, which is really, do we educate women? Do we not? Do we educate through a high school grade? Do we not? Do we? So this is going to be kind of a big deal. And then the funding, obviously, is going to be something that's going to be debated. Okay, so when it comes to slaves, all right, the legislatures of Virginia are going to grant a small number of slaves freedom due to their support during the Revolution, a very small number. Okay, Quakers and evangelical Christians are going to advocate for emancipation. And by the 1800s, states like Maryland are going to actually follow through with this. Now, something to note is that there are Quakers who disagree with this, who still hold slaves, and who are not on board with this emancipation idea. So it's not totally universal, guys. We got to remember that. Okay. Slavery is obviously still going to be defended. Jefferson is a huge proponent of slavery. He uses slaves. He agrees that it is an evil, but he also acknowledges that who else would work the land, and who else would serve the country in that way, and that it really is a status that best serves that race of people. So that's going to continue to kind of be his argument during all of this. Okay. In 1808, the Atlantic slave trade is going to be ended, but what that means is that we're just going to have a domestic slave trade. Okay. And that's going to kind of be what carries us until 1860 when we enter the Civil War, is the domestic slave trade. Tobacco is going to begin declining here, okay, because we're going to get this invention, right, from Eli Whitney, okay, of the cotton gin, which is going to bring about King Cotton, okay? So remember, slavery first begins with sugar and its really tough production, okay? Then we're going to get tobacco out in Virginia and the South. So tobacco and rice are going to be the huge exports of southern Chesapeake area of the colonies, all right, and then even the new states. And then here in the early 1800s is when we're going to actually get King Cotton. So now cotton is going to be the number one export in the southern states of America. We're also going to get these people, the American Colonization Society, they're going to start talking about, if we were to free slaves, we certainly don't want to live next to them. So we would need to colonize them somewhere, okay? And a lot of them are looking at Africa. But what you need to remember is that most of these slaves by 1808 aren't from Africa necessarily, okay, right? Maybe their lineages, but they were never born there, so they don't know anything about Africa. So this isn't quite appealing to the free blacks, what few exist during this time, okay? We are going to give it a go in Liberia, and it's not going to last very long. So, all right. So big thing to know is the Missouri Compromise, also known as the Compromise of 1820, super, super important. It's going to be Henry Clay who's going to put this together. Remember a while ago I said, hey guys, Henry Clay, super important. He's going to be around for a while, all right? And it's going to be over the Missouri Compromise. So do we allow Missouri in as a slave state? And if so, that tips the balance of power. So what are we going to do? Well, of course, we're going to put in a free state. So we're going to introduce Maine as a free state, Missouri as a slave state. Okay, we're going to draw the Mason-Dixon line and say, hey, this is where slavery can't go below this line, except for Missouri. Okay, everything above it is going to be free, and this is not going to really last for a while. Okay, we're going to get another compromise here in about 30 years because we're going to experience some problems. All right. So we're going to have religious freedoms going on. Okay. We're going to have the idea of, does the state or the parish support the church? What I really want you guys to remember is that as we read Jefferson and as we read Madison, at no point did either of those two founding fathers think that government on any level should have any role in religion. So they definitely are going to disagree with this. And instead, they're going to say, hey, the people need to figure out how to support their church, definitely not the state. What's going to come from this is also the Second Great Awakening, okay? So remember, this is like Coachella for religion, all right? So these people are going to have these revivals, all right? All of these people are going to come from all over to come to the tents, all right, and experience this intense, passionate preaching. It's going to be very theatrical, all right? And a lot of people are going to convert to Methodist and Baptist are going to be some of the big ones, all right? But it's huge. It's very popular. People are going to travel from all over to go to these revivals, okay? Because they're super like entertaining, but also rewarding and spiritual. Okay, so it's a really big deal. Also, what's going to come from this, all right, is that religion, maybe we should invite slaves into it, okay? But we're going to monitor that a little bit. Okay, remember what I kind of said earlier is that it's going to be an Old Testament reading when it comes to Christianity and slaves, because that's where we talk about slavery being kind of an okay thing. Definitely not New Testament preaching, because that's more everybody is kind of equal and we should all love each other. So we're not going to talk about that one. Okay. And so remember that part of this whole idea is that salvation, all right, is really big. It's linked to doing good. Okay, so that's also another part of the Second Great Awakening. During this time, the Second Great Awakening is going to open up doors for women, and it's going to give them some more opportunities. Okay, they kind of become the head religious piety leader of the home. Okay, so the Bible readings are going to come from the mother now. All right. Men and women are going to worship together. Okay, we're going to encourage children to be brought into this mix. All right, bring them to church. All right, and these women are also going to become teachers. Okay, so we're going to get more female teachers. There's going to be this new identity. All right, they still can't vote on anything in the church, but they're going to be a huge active member of the church. All right, which is also going to open up. Right, the idea is that their role is to go out and reform the wrongs that they see in society, which is going to be really huge during this time. Okay, so doors are going to open up for women, but we're still not going to vote because we can't. But that's okay. We get something at least. Okay, guys, add to your Unit 3 big ideas. All right, I would definitely say that the Second Great Awakening probably ought to be maybe one of your 5 key events. All right. So get that in your notes, and until next time.